Boston College knows their week one opponents, and it's that team down south that wants to get out of the ACC. Can BC give them a nice exit present? We'll talk about it on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black, editor and publisher of Eagle Insider. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get 150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, the ACC has been decided this year they're going to do a little drips and drabs schedule release. I would guess this has to do with they want more content for their network and more opportunities for their talking heads to get more of a chance to break down every little thing. So today was the week one opponents. Next we get, I think it's the Thursdays and Friday games, and then they get the whole schedule on Wednesday. So today's release was not a huge surprise for Boston College. You knew, I think Blake James actually announced it at some press or fundraiser, but I had heard it too, that the opening game was going to be against Florida State, and that was confirmed. Now, this is an interesting game because it's not only are you getting Florida State instead of Rutgers, NIU, Colgate, Duke was the first year, but that was the COVID year, so that doesn't really count. You're getting one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country heading into next year, right off the bat. The other odd part about this, the game's going to be at Doak Campbell, so it's going to be on the road as well. The other weird part about this game is that it's a Monday night game. It's on Labor Day evening. So I'm guessing that's going to be on ABC. It's going to be a nationally televised game right off the start. And so this is such a different look for Boston College's schedule compared to the years previous. Just look at the last 2 years. You started with Rutgers, who, yes, Rutgers got better and made a bowl. What was it, last year? They've been a bowl team, so they're not that bad anymore. But you went in expecting not much out of them. Then you had NIU this year, a MAC team. 3 years ago, you had Colgate. Now you have a top 5 team, a team that should have been in the playoffs last year. God, if you ask a Florida State fan, they will tell you that they should have been in the playoffs. You're starting trial by fire right off the bat. And there's obviously a little bit more to this because if you've been listening to any of the legal proceedings that are going on, the Florida State's suing the ACC. They want to get out of their grants of rights and go their merry way off into the SEC or Big Ten or whoever will take them. So there's a little bit of bad blood there. And Florida State is not happy. They feel like the ACC with the grant of rights is holding them back. They also feel like the ACC, and especially Jim Phillips, didn't do much to help them when they had their playoff run there, giving them a case that they should have made it over teams like Texas or Alabama. So this has got a little extra feel. I saw someone from Virginia Tech when I tweeted it out say, God, I hope you guys beat them. I think that's going to be probably the narrative heading into next year for Florida State. A lot of folks just find them to be kind of whiny, and they're going to want to see them get their comeuppance because they now are very entitled. They feel like they're going to be the best team in the country. I mean, to their point, they didn't lose last year. They're bringing in the number 3 transfer portal class. They have a top 5 recruiting class. They're stacked. It feels like half their transfers are from Alabama. So obviously they're getting blue chips. They have 10 4-star transfers coming in, including DJ Uyagale, who I'm going to have to, again, make sure I don't butcher his name going into next year. Remember him from Clemson? He's on his 3rd school now. He went from Clemson to Oregon State, now to Florida State. So you're getting a new quarterback. And while BC is getting to start their season off on the road, this is game number 2 for Florida State. Florida State has a game before this. They're going to Ireland to play against Georgia Tech in a week 0 game. So they're going to get a little bit of a running head start here. So this is tough. I honestly, though, I like this. I like that you get your hardest game in early because maybe you catch them before they find their rhythm. You can push your guys to play the best that they can because you're not playing against Northern Illinois or whatever, and you can't putz around and put less than your best team out there. You have to play to win, otherwise you're going to get blown out. So I don't think BC. Well, let's put it this way: when BC lost to Florida State last year, 31-29, I had them getting pummeled in that game. And up until the fourth quarter, it looked like I was going to win that bet. But BC, to their credit, came back. I look at this game and I worry the same thing. It's going to be on the road. That's going to be tough. It's week 1. That's going to be tough. And Florida State has a head start as well. That's going to be tough. But the one thing that I look at that makes me feel like BC could hold on, maybe be a surprise team in this when you look at what Florida State has is I don't think DJU is anywhere the quarterback that Jordan Travis is. I like DJU. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I just don't think he's Jordan Travis. So I think there may be a small downgrade there. That being said, you're going to have a humongous game from Thomas Castellanos to win this. You can't have him out there staring down receivers and throwing interceptions. So the hope is that when this starts off, you're going to be feeling good. Now, tomorrow we'll find out. I think it's the Thursdays and Friday games, so we'll find out which awful game we'll get there. Hopefully it won't be like November this year. Remember, was November this year that we had 2 Fridays and a Thursday game? Hopefully it's BC, if they have 1 or 2 of those, it's spread out. And for those folks that are wondering, we still don't know who that 4th out of conference game is. I saw a guy on Twitter. He goes by BC Bob, and he seems to know stuff. I don't know who he is. Say that it's probably going to be Duquesne for an FCS school. So that could be interesting, but that would be right in the middle of what will be a very tough beginning of the season. If you look at the schedule, what BC has coming up to start this, it is really a tough start. They're going to go at Florida State, most likely Duquesne. Then it's at Missouri, and then at home against Michigan State, and then Western Kentucky. That is a tough start. So I don't know. If BC comes out like they did against Northern Illinois and Holy Cross and all that, they're going to be in for a very slow start. They got to be able to start quick. So that's just our little bit of a discussion on that. Now, in a moment, we're done basically with the first block of transfers and recruits. Now, Jeff Hafley has 2 mind frames on how he has done things. I'm going to look at both, and I'm going to kick it off by looking at his previous philosophy on recruiting over transfer portals. I'll look at why that would work better at Boston College and why it may not in just a moment. Now, FanDuel is with the regular season, it's wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Are you a big Lions fan? Did you watch that game against who they play last week? I'm totally even blanking. I have to admit I missed some of the NFL games, but I love watching what Dan Campbell has done with a franchise that's been completely dead. And I like their chances against the 49ers. I'm sure they're going to be underdogs. And if you go to FanDuel, you can get those odds right now. Do you think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to run for, X amount of yards? You can go there and do the over-under on that too. You can all add these all up into a same-game parlay that's easy to find and easy to set up. So go over to FanDuel right now and go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup with FanDuel, the official sports partner of the NFL. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. So I want to kind of wax philosophical here and go over kind of Jeff Hafley's philosophies. He's had 2 different philosophies since he's taken over at Boston College. The first 2 or 3 years, he's leaned heavily on this mind frame, his mind frame that he was not going to live in the transfer portal. Direct quote from him, and I believe he used it multiple times as head coach. Now, you look at the first couple seasons, he had 3 or 4 transfers that came in, and he definitely was bringing in more freshman heavy classes. You saw classes of 24, 25 guys, like full recruiting classes that clearly made a majority of your roster. He wanted to make BC a developmental program, a program that brings in guys, coaches them up, and gets them up to the level of where they could go to the NFL. And to some level, he's been successful with that. You've seen some players like Zay Flowers, Christian Mahogany, Zion Johnson, to just name a few, that have gone on from being under recruited 2 to 3 star recruits to, and in Zion's case, a FCS player. He's coached them up. Now Zion was a transfer, but the other two were on the roster. You've also seen guys as well like Elijah Jones and Vinny DePalma and Cam Arnold. These are all guys that came on the roster through recruiting, and he's been able to get them into everyday starters. This is a good philosophy right now if you wanted to go in and really hit the recruiting classes, because what he has said, and I've heard this too, is that the transfer portal has made it harder for freshmen or upcoming seniors to find spots on rosters, because some programs are just going so heavy on transfers that there's kids that would normally be recruited that are slipping through the cracks. And for kids slipping through the cracks, that sounds like Boston College all over the place, right? Between Luke Kuechly and Matt Ryan and Mark Herzlig and you name it, Doug Flutie, there's guys that just are not recruited heavily that get here. So you would think that with this new rise in the transfer portal, that Jeff Hafley would be able to kill it. That being said, Boston College's record has not made recruiting all that easy. With the changes in NIL, it's also made it not easy, because BC was reticent to go into the NIL world, but was kind of dragged in kicking and screaming by their alumni and fans that are like, look, we got to do this. And they have agreed to it, but it's more on the, we're using this money to retain guys and not, again, develop, retain, but not to lure them in, which is different than other programs where they're using it basically as finder's fees and contracts to get guys in. So it has worked, but it isn't perfect right now. What we've seen is the issue is obviously NIL is a big thing, but the question mark about evaluating talent can also be brought up, as well as why this has been an issue for Boston College. Like, if you're going to go in for recruiting, you got to be able to evaluate talent. There's been a lot of guys that have just not panned out. Let's just be blunt. You brought in, I mean, just look at the class of 2023, for instance. You can pick out the top recruit that Boston College brought in was Sean Battle. He didn't make it out of spring camp. He's not on any team now. Whatever the reason was, and the staff will never tell you because it's a privacy issue for a kid. He just never made it. You've had other kids that just haven't made it. And you look at the kids that aren't connecting with Boston College, and they're not transferring out to go to peer programs. Many of them are going to transfer out to FCS. I mean, you look at Xavier Coleman; he's at Furman. You got guys going to Joshua Hardy's going to NCA&T. It's just they just don't pan out. So in order for recruiting to work, if that's what you want this program to be, you've got to be able to evaluate at a high level and get guys in, even if they're 3 stars, that are going to contribute and fit what you're doing. They haven't been able to do that. Now caveat again, a couple of these classes were messed up because of the COVID rules. Coaches couldn't really go and watch them practice for some of these years, but that excuse is gone now. That's not the case anymore. So now you're bringing in guys and you're hoping that you're going to be able to hit. I like what they're doing. I think there's some guys out there that I think with you can coach up and see some things like Turbo Richard, new freshman that's coming in. Love it. Jonathan Montague, their quarterback. Very excited to see what he could develop. But they're all guys that should take a couple years. So that leaves the biggest question with this recruiting. If you're going in with that recruiting mind frame, do you have enough time to even do that? Because if you're Jeff Hafley, you need to get answers immediately because your seat's pretty warm. You haven't produced at a level that keeps you safe, and another tank season would be a really big problem for Boston College. So can you afford to make your roster mostly freshmen? I don't think you can. And in a moment, I'm going to wrap things up by talking about the new philosophy and why I think this is more what Jeff Hafley should be doing, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black, Eagle Insider. I have to say before we wrap things up here, if you've not gone on the Eagle Insider, you can get in for $1 for the first month. Check it out. If you're like, I don't want to, I don't like to spend money. It's $1. There's some great stuff. Beacon Street Ball, who we'll have on later this week. He wrote a whole bunch of stuff about basketball, both positive and negative. We have BC Hockey Blogger getting us ready for BC and BU. These are all VIP stuff, but this is stuff you're not going to find anywhere else. Like, yeah, if you want to go hear what Earl Grant has to say, you can go to any other site and read his, the transcripts of his press conferences. But if you want like detailed analysis of what BC's doing right and wrong, come over to our site. Check it out. We got what no one else has. So check it out. Now, this past year to 2 years, Jeff Hafley has had to turn a switch on how he views the roster development of his program. He has not been afforded the ability to just rely on true freshmen to fix his roster. This year specifically, he only brought in 11 kids to make a recruiting class, and he's already hit that in the transfer portal, and he's not done. He's not done with the transfer portal. Now, kids are on campus now, so he's not going to be able to get anyone until after spring football, but there's a whole other transfer period after spring. That's when they got Thomas Castellanos and Caleb Jones, their defensive tackle who got hurt you never saw this year. There's a possibility that they're going to have more needs, whether it's defensive end, linebacker, inside area, or offensive line in the spring. So he is definitely moved away from, and he's even said it, that he's moved away from we can't live in the transfer portal. He couches it when you hear him talk about it, and he kind of is a little bit dodgy about it. But I mean, the results are right in front of you. He knows he has to get these guys in. And so why does this philosophy maybe work better for Boston College than relying heavily on the freshmen? Well, you can get on film a lot of these kids at the college level, and they have grown. They're no longer, high school seniors. They've had times on campus, no matter where they are around campus, and the way that they're looking for kids are kids that have been around 2 to 3 years. So they've already been developed quite a bit. You kind of know what you're getting with these kids. It's not like a huge surprise. Yeah, maybe you can get them up a level, or maybe sometimes they just don't work out. But for a school like Boston College, getting transfers, maybe kids that don't play, like we see at Ohio State with Ryan Turner and Cameron Martinez, or guys that just don't fit, like Jerrond Bradley from Texas Tech, or guys from lower conferences like that just want to bump up, like Kyle Hergel this year. There's a wide variety of kids that do want to play for a school like Boston College. And BC has enough NIL, I feel, to get these kids here. You're never going to get the blue chips. So, the kids that are making millions of dollars, whether it's Arch Manning or Caleb Williams, they're never going to be around BC. And honestly, the terminology around it's changed, but it really hasn't changed in the last 50 years. Now it's in the open, but Boston College was never getting elite recruits. So NIL has not changed that. It's just a different way that BC's just kind of getting left at as the bridesmaid. So that being said, they're able to get guys, whether it's Ryan O'Keefe, Thomas Castellanos, Kai Robichaux, Kyle Hergel. I mean, you go down the list, they've hit way more in the transfer portal than they have on the recruiting trail. And the guys that they brought in the transfer portal have been bigger impacts than the recruits that they brought in. So for every Christian Mahogany, there's a Kyle Hergel, there's a Logan Taylor. And yeah, Mahogany's better, but you're getting more bang for your buck from this. So I like that BC is going more in the transfer portal. Maybe there's positions that you have to recruit and kind of, hope that they pan out, like offensive tackle. I've heard that's an expensive one. But there's everything else. You can go to the transfer portal and figure out what you want and see the film of what you're getting and get guys that are more further along. This is a big time benefit to Boston College. So the fact that BC has moved away from recruits is a good thing. I don't care. Like, honestly, let's win now. Let's get guys in here that can win. So if BC brought in a class of 11, if their recruiting class is small again this year, fine. If they have enough room to do both, that's even better. But if they are at a crunch, I would much rather see the Eagles fill in what they need in the transfer portal to continue their upward momentum. You only have a couple years with Thomas Castellanos. If he continues to grow, you have a really good quarterback. You need to bring good talent in here. Guys like Jaden McGowan and Jerron Bradley, they're gonna be a big upgrade over what you had last year. So the transfer portal does do a lot more for Boston College. Jeff Hafley had to change, and I think he did the right thing. Now, this is AJ Black. We'll be back again tomorrow. There's going to be a game against Virginia Tech, but I'm going to be recording before that. It's a 9:00 game. I'm not staying up to the end of that to record. Sorry, guys. I have a day job. But we'll have Beacon on probably on Wednesday to record and talk about that. Thank you all so much. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247 and hit that like button before you leave. Help us by telling other people about Locked On BC. Do you have friends that you talk about BC, over a beer at a bar? Tell them about it. Have them give us a listen. Say, listen, I listened to this guy AJ, and he's a real idiot. No, I'm just kidding. We love all of you guys, and you do such a great job of help spreading the word. So want to thank you again. This is AJ Black, and thank you for listening to Locked On Boston College, your team every day.